Hey everyone, it's Troy Jackson with the weekly update. So we're in the Senate chamber now, and actually we started back this week, actually doing legislation, doing the bills here in the Senate chamber. We've been working previously at the Augusta Civic Center, which was, good. We got a lot of work done and people there were great, but this is the state Senate, down the halls, the main house. This is the legislature, and this is really home. It was a lot different being back here in this building, in this room, and I think everyone, you could tell, really was excited that we were back. That being said, the beginning of the week was Memorial Day, obviously remembering our servicemen and women, the sacrifice they made. Two of the bills that we had actually deal with the veterans that have done so much for us. One of them was actually my bill that's working its way through, but what it does is it gives veterans an additional property tax exemption on top of what was currently there. This means that, for your house, if it's valued at $100,000, you could take $10,000 off the top of that valuation because you're a veteran. It's meaningful. Obviously, it would be great if we could do more, and hopefully we will as time goes on, but certainly an additional piece to help with veterans. Another bill that's actually on the governor's desk was Senator Chip Curry's bill. What it does is it gives veterans and their spouses that transition back into the state, if they are licensed in a certain occupation, sometimes they might have came from a state like Texas or something like that, and this bill gives them additional help, makes it easier for both the veteran and the spouse, so that we can, certainly get them back in the workforce, make sure that they don't have to have any additional hurdles. Again, serving our country and coming back, whatever we can do to help. Another bill that we heard this week was our Assistant Majority Leader, Maddie Daughtry, to try and come up with a plan for paid family medical leave.
As a small business owner, I know very well the costs that the good senator referenced, and that's why I want to have a system that's not determined by DC, but that's determined by Maine, that looks at a wide variety of proposals, including one that I'm particularly interested in, which is an opt-in system, and all the various methods to find a solution that fits for Mainers. With
everything that we've gone through with COVID, it made it even more clear that families need help at crisis time, and Senator Daughtry's bill is actually, at least a start of showing us a way to how to do that. So another great bill that we heard and passed here in the Senate this week was Senator Chloe Maxim's bill. This was a bill that actually helps with seniors that may be homebound with transportation needs, be it the grocery store, be it the doctor's office. Senator Maxim was unbelievable leading up to her election on this. We were in the heart of the pandemic. So many people didn't know. There was no vaccinations. I mean, people were being advised to stay home, and people that lived by themselves didn't have either the ability or want to go out into public. And Senator Maxim was organizing rides, was organizing pickups, helping people get their prescriptions. And so this is really a carryover of what she actually did before this bill was passed. And it's great, she was a rock star as far as doing it for her own community, and she's brought that forward for the legislature to try and give help on that across the state for, obviously rural areas, but for anyone really. So on a more somber note for this week, this was the anniversary, the 100-year anniversary of the Tulsa race massacre, which was, an incredibly bad moment, obviously, in the United States history. And we actually adjourned the Senate on Tuesday in remembrance of that.
Mr. President, women and men of the Senate, as the great American author James Baldwin wrote, quote, "One must say yes to life and embrace it wherever it is found, and it is found in terrible places," end quote. 100 years ago this past weekend, the Tulsa Race Massacre, the single most deadly event of racial violence waged against Black American citizens in history, was visited upon the residents of a thriving community. Free people who had settled, along with the southeastern tribal nations that had once enslaved them in what was then called Indian Territory in Oklahoma. White mobs invaded and seized the neighborhood and mercilessly meted out destruction all over the place. Homes and businesses, churches and hospitals were bombed and burned to the ground. Some residents were executed by firing squads shot in the back of the head at point-blank range. Others were tied, hands behind their backs, to the backs of carriages and dragged through the streets, their faces raked across the ground. At least 300 black bodies were dumped in mass unmarked graves. At least 6,000 black people were interned, yes, interned, in large internment camp facilities for several days and could only be released if vouched for by a white man. Thus, black families were torn asunder, intergenerational wealth gone up in smoke, their histories buried beneath the ruin. It was a vicious war of terror waged against freedom-loving black people living under a doctrine of self-determination and self-sufficiency in a thriving place known as Black Wall Street in the segregated neighborhood called Greenwood. It was a massacre. And to this day, reprehensibly, there has not been enough remorse or remembrance, reconciliation or recompense. And so as we go away this afternoon, Mr. President, women and men of the Senate, let us go away more committed to embracing all the terrible places life can be found. May we learn the lesson of this history, our history, a history that we must never forget. Thank you, Mr. President.
Really thank you for everyone, and I look forward to seeing you next week, and take care and be well.